So this episode of One Piece is really tense with Luffy essentially on death's door. He's literally drowning, or he has drowned, to the point where Nojiko and Gen have had to jump in, and Nojiko is holding his head out of the water while Gen is giving him CPR, which is a crazy visual, seeing Luffy's neck stretch all the way. Like, does Luffy have a limit with how much he can stretch? Like, because it seems obscene, you know what I mean? But it looks like he's actually died, or he's very close to death, and they're sort of at a point where they need to defeat these Arlong pirates officers quickly and get Luffy saved as soon as they can, because otherwise all hope is lost. The only person that can defeat Arlong is Luffy. I'm confident of that. But this episode featured Hachi versus Zoro, which was great because Hachi is my favorite of the Arlong pirates besides Arlong himself in terms of his character. I just think he's really funny. He's obviously really goofy and silly. He has a bit of more of a sinister side, as we saw in this episode, but he's still, even then, he's just a funny and goofy character. There was the scene where he was running from Zoro, and Zoro sort of chased him off a pillar, and Hachi just sort of stuck to it. And then there was a brief pause, and Zoro was like, "Are you going to come down or what?" And I don't know, it just cracked me up. It was evident in this episode that Zoro has grown a lot from this Mihawk fight. He still had the injuries that he sustained from that fight, so he wasn't able to use the three-sword style immediately, so Hachi was getting the better of him. But eventually his resolve kicked in, and he said there's no way he's going to lose to somebody, anybody, before he confronts Mihawk again. And he says in order to beat Mihawk, he has to not be ordinary. So nothing will do except victory. And he said that when he lost to Mihawk, he's never going to taste defeat again. It was one of the coolest sequences ever when Yosuke and Johnny threw Zoro's swords towards him, and he caught both of them in the coolest way possible, and then sliced Hachi up. I just thought that was such an insanely cool visual. And I really like the way that Zoro describes his strength and where his strength comes from. The weight of his swords are much heavier than Hachi's in terms of he's carrying for him and Kuina, and his drive in order to become the greatest swordsman in the world and face Mihawk again. That is much stronger than anything that Hachi can bring to the table. Even if he brings 6 swords instead of Sanji's 3, the weight of what he carries, his burden and his dreams are a lot heavier than Hachi's. And I just thought that was such a good way to put it, and such a great metaphor for the situation and Zoro versus Hachi. Because like I said, while Hachi physically had more swords and should have had an advantage over Zoro, he's a much better swordsman, and he has a much more reason to win and to fight. Besides that, there was also the start of the fight between Sanji and Kurobi, and Kurobi smacked him so goddamn hard. I thought Sanji was out for good. But luckily, obviously, training with Zeph and getting kicked around by Zeph, he said that felt like nothing compared to that. And I love the fact that he referred back to the Barate, because Kurobi said something like that any ordinary pirate would have been like killed or knocked out by that shot. And he says, I know plenty of pirates at this restaurant that could take a shot like that. And just the reference back to the Barate and where Sanji came from. I know it wasn't that long ago, but I love that arc. And it really makes One Piece feel like a big world, you know what I mean? It's not just a bunch of random islands. It is all in the same space, and it does feel like that. Everything is connected, And then you have Usopp, who's just running for his life, which is probably for the best. I don't think he could beat Chu in a one-on-one fight. I think that's fairly obvious. But driving him away is actually great. Like, Usopp is more of a strategist than he is a fighter, let's be honest. So he's doing his part too. So they're all doing their part in order to, eventually take down the Arlong pirates. At the end of the episode, Sanji jumps into the water to swim down to try and save Luffy, and he actually lures Kurobi into the water with him. I don't know what he's thinking, because I feel like he's going to be at such a disadvantage fighting a fishman underwater, but I'm sure he has something in his mind, because he's a smart dude, so I can't imagine he's just dived in there for no particular reason. But yeah, that's where this episode left off. I love that Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp are all getting shine as well. It's not just the Luffy show, so we're getting to see part of what they can do as well. We're getting to see them face off with the Arlong pirates, and I can't wait to see if, when Luffy does regain consciousness, him and Arlong finally have a full-on fight. I imagine that's going to happen, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. So yeah, let's go.